Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Success Thursday, where we dive into what success means for us as Scrum Masters, this week with Tomo Lennox. Hi Tomo, welcome back.
Nice to be here.
Absolutely. So Tomo, on Thursdays we dive into what success means, but first, share with us what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
So I want to say that you can't just have one. Anything you have wears out. A good Scrum Master should have a pocket full of them to pull out, maybe 6 that you know off the top of your head, and maybe more you get off one of those wonderful websites. One of my favorites to pull out is when I have a team that just kind of hasn't gotten into this retrospective thing yet. They're just not, they're just quiet. I have one called The Best Story, where I tell everybody during this sprint, collect your best story and your worst story and tell us why. It's kind of time consuming. I often don't get around to everybody, but people will come to me with their stories. A lot of people who are shy and don't want to talk are willing to talk about their work. And so when you ask them, what's the best story this sprint? They'll tell you, oh, I did this thing and this, and the specs were all just the way we wanted them, and we talked to the customer, and they signed off in no time, and we worked there and we got it done. I think, good news, swarming, coordination, yeah. And what was the worst story? Oh, it took days. I wrote this and they didn't respond. Okay, so when the coordination breaks down, it doesn't take many of those, and all of those things you want to come out of retrospective just flow out from people who don't talk much.
Absolutely. And stories have somehow this magic impact on us. Like we get into them, right? It's because of that we very often talk about storytelling, right? Like we get into them, and that allows people not only to share what's going on, but actually to share it with details they would otherwise overlook, because stories, because of their sequentiality, because of the things that build on each other, allows us to put a lot of information together in a very short period of time.
It's a really easy way to get to the heart of it. And if I could just squeeze in a little one, when I want to get things going, kind of as a warm-up sometimes, I do the mood graph. You just draw a box on the screen, the shared whatever, the whiteboard, and then you have everybody different color, just draw a line for their mood over the sprint. And sometimes they go really high and sometimes really low, and they cross over. And then you just say, this green one here kind of peaks in the middle but goes down at the end. Why does it go down at the end? Oh, we had that release problem. It's like, it only takes about 5 minutes to do a decent mood graph one, and everybody starts talking about everything. So again, a good way to get people moving when they're reluctant to get into this retrospective thing.
Absolutely. That's a great tip. Also, it's the moment you start putting stuff on the board, whiteboard, share, whiteboard, whatever that is, you actually feel like you are contributing, right? So it makes people also much more likely to go on and verbalize what they just put on the screen.
Yes.
And the other great thing that it does for us as Scrum Masters is that it puts us in the place where we should always be, which is asking questions that lead to reflection.
Mm-hmm. And the thing I like about the mood graph in particular is, unlike some of the idea boards or something where you have to write a thing up there and kind of stick your neck out, this is just a line. Just draw a line. Anybody can do that at low risk, but then you can talk about it.
Absolutely. And it is in the talking that we discover what's behind. There's 2 great formats for us. Thank you very much for sharing that, Tomo. And next, we turn our attention to success, because, of course, one of the reasons we host these different format retrospectives is to try to get at what's in front of us. What are the obstacles? What are the things preventing us from succeeding as a team? And a lot of that is about what it means to be successful for us in our role as Scrum Masters. That's what we want to do to help the team succeed. So share with us, Tomo, what's your definition of success for a Scrum Master?
So the best success is customer delight, and that is really hard to measure. So I always try to push organizations to find a way to measure that. But for lack of it, I use falling back on my lean now, throughput and cycle time as reasonable proxies for success. Short of customer delight, if you can get it, that's better. The wonderful thing about it is it works for Scrum, it works for Kanban. Most of the tools out there will collect it automatically for you. And now you can graph it and you can say, it looks like the amount of time for us to get a story across the board is creeping up over the weeks. Like, how could that be? And that starts a really good discussion. And it leads to those process corrections, which give you faster stories, which is a deep part of Lean and Agile. So I really like watching the cycle time and the throughput. Doesn't matter whether you're doing points, whether you're doing velocity, whether you're not doing any of that Kanban, you can still collect this data from any team and get some reasonable concept of how they're doing. And if they try to optimize it, things get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the things for many Scrum Masters out there who've never done Kanban, who perhaps don't have a background in Lean, I think there's this, I would call it a magic trick behind those two terms, throughput and cycle time. And the fact is that those are just numbers. And, as you said, Tomo, most tools will collect it automatically. But they are numbers that have a special characteristic, what I would call they are systemic measures. They are not metrics that happen to measure only one thing. They actually measure everything. So, for example, throughput not only measures how many stories you delivered in a particular time frame, but it also measures the impact of meetings, the impact of vacations, the impact of sick days, the impact of lack of skills in the team, the impact of many other things. So for me, I think it's very important for us to highlight what is all behind this throughput and cycle time. And Tom, I know you have a big background in Kanban and Lean, so talk us through that. Why are throughput and cycle time so important in your mind?
So again, going back to Lean, one of the Lean techniques is to come up with your value stream. And a lot of times, an Agile team will focus on just the middle of the value stream. The BA gave us a story, we coded the story, we tested the story, we finished story. Hey, success. But that whole process from there's an idea to it gets communicated to somebody, it gets submitted in a form, somebody evaluates it, then it gets assigned to a BA and the BA gets assigned to a team and then it goes to you. If you're not looking at that, that's probably where the slow part is coming. And so that's got to be within your scope. That's the slow part usually. And then on the other side, there's often a deployment part, which can take a month. So you really want all that in the scope so you can talk about it. You can say, why does this story take 3 weeks? Well, because we have to request a voice recording and it takes them 2.5 weeks to do that. And so you talk about, well, is there any way we could have anticipated that? Well, yeah, we would know it's in the story, but the sprint hasn't started. Well, what if we looked out at the stories and checked off the ones that had a voice recording in it? Could we request that earlier? Yeah, I guess we could. And would that take off 2 weeks? Like, probably. Like, okay, let's try that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, right? Like looking at the end to end, the value stream as you talked about it. And then the other thing that I think is very important for us as Scrum Masters is that this helps us find where might be problems that are one-offs and where might be problems that are constant reoccurrences in the system. This is something that, you have a background in Lean, I do too. And this is something that we don't often talk about, but not all problems are worth solving, right? So throughput and cycle time helps us differentiate between what are one-offs, special cause, and what are systemic situations, common cause. And it's the common cause problems that we need to address. It's those that happen all the time that we need to address, right? If somebody was sick for a week and that delayed a couple of stories and that made throughput go down or cycle time go down, that doesn't matter because it will happen, but it won't happen at the rate that we can impact. But that recording, that waiting for the voice recording that you were just talking about, that will happen over and over again. Right? That's a systemic problem that we can address and therefore make the teams much more effective.
And that broke this constant problem the team had where they said, we can't do Scrum, because we have a 4-week cycle time. There's no way we could do 2-week cycle time. And as soon as they took that long pole out, suddenly stories were flowing through in 3-4 days. And it's like, oh, I guess this works.
Absolutely. That was a great way to assess and address the reasons for success in a team. Thank you for sharing that, Tomo. Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.